Hello and welcome to the Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and I'm here today with Declan Finn, author of Honor at Stake and uh, Hellspawn, the first book of the St. Tommy series. How are you doing today, Declan?
It's St. Patrick's Day. Of course, I'm doing awesome.
Fantastic. I understand Hellspawn's up for some Dragon Awards.
Yes, well, okay, to be perfectly fair, the Dragon Awards out of Dragon Con in Atlanta, uh,
Hmm.
they the awards are open for voting to the general public. For the record,
Ah,
you don't even have to pay for it. Uh,
wow.
there are at least two or three. There are at least there are minimum two people. Sorry, three people, maybe. Sorry, four people and counting, as I remember them, who have already said, okay, Hellspawn, St. Tommy NYPD, Book One is going to be my vote for Best Horror. And at least one of them said that the week after the book came out. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm kind of hopeful that my fourth nomination, the fourth nomination is the charm. Uh,
Right, right. It's those hypnotic messages you put in the spaces between the words.
yes, listen close to the sound of my voice. Yes.
Exactly.
So I'm not yet
Uh,
Bengali.
what's that? There was some Arabian Nights tale where this magician is killed by a king for some reason. You know, particularly insane king. He said, "Okay, well, if you ever need wisdom, just open my book, and it's a little bit hard to get into. So you need to lick your thumb to open it up because that's the key." He's like, "Okay," so he opens it up, licks his thumb, opens a page, licks his thumb again, opens a page. All of a sudden, he falls over dead from the poison that was ladled onto every page. The magician got his own back. So tell me about Honor at Stake. I mean, nope. Hellspawn and St. Tommy.
Okay, we can talk about Honor at Stake later. No, St. Tommy NYPD was actually spawned in my head about nearly 20 years ago. It was 2001. I remember this for various and sundry reasons. But
Hmm.
no, I was taking a course on Christian spirituality and mysticism, which isn't as it is not as hippy dippy as it sounds. But and we were going through the various abilities attributed to some Catholic saints. You know, the once they got to the ability to smell evil, all I could think was, wouldn't that be great for a cop to have? And and
Sure.
then I wound up basically developing my own superhero over, well, various and sundry charisms, gifts given to certain saints, and it's like, damn, can we get the Marvel comic now? Um, and
Well, with the way things are going, you'll have to settle for Archaven.
I have heard worse offers, but no, right now, uh, it's going strong. Book four is already slated to be published. Book five is already drafted. I'll be getting to book six as soon as book five is sent in and finally edited. But oh yes, and
Hmm.
something else that might be of amusement. Um, One of the things in my very rough sketch from 2001 was I only had one. There was only one possible villain for this guy, and the answer is a serial killer possessed by a demon.
Of course.
So, and that was, and when I was actually asked by my current publisher, one of my current publishers, Silver Empire, for a pitch, that's pretty much all I sent him. It's like, okay, a cop with the saint powers of saints versus
Mhm.
a demonic serial killer. He said, okay, I'm sold.
Right.
I sent you three other proposals. Do you want the other? Nope, that's good. And away we go.
Beautiful. I like it. So he's pursuing a serial killer, and I suppose there's other depths to this book and to villains and all kinds of other things, sort of expanding out like what I imagine Dresden Files, I guess. Set in New
Pretty
York's. Hmm?
pretty much. It is set in New York City, mainly because I live here. But
Of course.
funny enough, I've actually gotten somebody say, you know, I can tell this guy lives in New York. You know why? Because he has an entire novel set in New York City. He never once went near Manhattan. Only tourists do that. It's like, okay, I'm good with that.
Right. Speaking of like cities and whatnot, I'm always disappointed when it's like Chicago or some other big city chosen rather than St. Louis. It's like me and David Halquist, uh, like we're going over like sort of places where you can set things, and then it's like, wait a minute, there's churches. We have the biggest basilica west of the Mississippi. We've got Indian burial grounds. We've got ancient, caves and all that jazz. It's like if you know a city, you'll never be without something to throw at your protagonist.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, St. Louis is great. The only person I know, there may be two people who have done St. Louis, and I'm sketchy about the second one.
Hmm.
I know Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake series was St. Louis, and I want to say Kim Harrison's Hollows novels, but for some reason I might be getting that one wrong. I'd have to look that one up. It's been a while. But yeah, no. And if you know any part of your local town, heck, I live in Queens, which the only now I don't know about you, but from what I've gathered, the only thing people in the rest of the world know about Queens is Fran Drescher and the nanny. And all I could think is, okay, let's start with the dozen cemeteries we have. One of the jokes is around my household growing up was, Queens is where the rest of New York comes to die. You know,
Yep.
occasionally there are occasionally some cemeteries in Brooklyn. Although, if you ever want to come to New York for one of your books, we have what is called the Interborough or the Jackie Robinson Parkway. Pick one.
Hmm.
And in order to construct it, they had to move a whole bunch of graves as it winds through the cemetery. So just imagine what you can do with, a necromancer who wants to tear up a highway. And it's like, okay, the zombies will just come up through this concrete, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's not even. It's like, yeah, I like it.
And no, I haven't done that to my character yet. Although give me time. I one of Jim Butcher's convention sayings is "Suffer, character, suffer." Um, well, I have not adopted that motto yet. It does seem to be what I end up doing.
Right.
you know, I don't know about you, but as a writer, one of the fun things is seeing what happens to character. What do I get out of characters when I push them over the edge?
I'm more of a. All right. Well, here's a playpen. One of these balls is a live grenade. I hope you enjoy your time and stay here. Which is always great. Uh,
But yeah.
but it's of course it's not about that. Is the goal of the series to catch the serial killer, or is that just the first book?
Oh, that's book one.
Hmm.
Hellspawn is a serial killer. Uh, I won't give you any clues about the second book, but it's entitled Death Cult.
Oh,
Yes, I bet you can't guess what that one's about.
well, clearly it's obviously the Red Hat ladies or the Shriners or whatever else you have out there. I'm sure you're spoiled for choices out in New York City.
Oh, good lord, am I ever? And book three is simply Infernal Affairs, which
I
currently
saw
out.
that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's where it's just okay. And like as you mentioned with Harry Dresden, and I did not mean to do a knockoff. Well, I did not mean to steal the formula when I wrote it, but I'm going through the book, and my original thought was going to be, okay, we're going to put Saint Tommy Nolan, or at least Detective Tommy Nolan. All saints are dead.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put him up against corrupt cops. And it's like, you know what? I'm bored now. I know. Let's give a new definition to the dark web and have every supernatural hitman within, 50 miles of New York City come after this guy. So it's so like with Butcher, my book 3 ended up opening up the universe quite a bit, where my character's going through going, there are vampires. Of course, there are vampires. Why not?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I'll end up like I admit there's so many good things to read these days. I haven't gotten to St. Tommy yet, but I'm always on with David Halquist or Corey McCleary or something like that, and I was figuring out like we were talking about this, and all we had was the premise, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to do a Protestant version. It's going to be in the Bayou. It's going to be in Southern Baptist land, and then it's going to be he's going to wake up after receiving his angelic commission or whatever, and he'll find this New Orleans swamp pastor burning his things, and he's like, well, why are you burning my things? Don't worry about it. The Catholics get weird when you show up with a resurrected man's belongings, and then it goes on and on and on. As he fights vampires or werewolves or a gang who he's not sure whether they're werewolves or not. But of course, they turn into werewolves by the end because you gotta do it. But
Oh,
admittedly, I'm going to steal more from Monster Hunter because that might be a formula that works.
just a little.
It's like I don't want to say I'm motivated by money, but
No. As to steal a line from Larry Correa, the goal of the author is to get paid.
oh yes, oh yes. Uh, that'd be nice. But hmm. So you've got Honor at Stake, you've got Saint Tommy. What other series of note do you have?
Oh, well, there's what is euphemistically referred to as the Pious Trilogy,
Hmm.
um, which is kind of like the Dune trilogy, only with fewer books.
And it'll
Yeah.
stop once you're dead.
Oh no, it's already stopped
Oh.
for the moment, anyway. No, it wound up. I was going to do my version of Dan Brown because only with actual history and conspiracy theories that have turned out to be true in the years since I've written it. But no,
Sorry.
this is what happens when you have an author, sorry, a trained historian read Steve Barry or Dan Brown
Hmm.
and go, and also a writer who is also a fiction writer whose favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. And
Of course.
and it's okay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to out Dan Brown. Dan Brown. I'm going to use actual history. My characters will not be made of cardboard. I can do this so much better, and I'll do it in one bloody book. 3 books
Hmm.
later, I finished the fiction. Another book turned into a collection of anthologies, turned into a collection of short stories, and the fifth one of the Pious trilogy turned out to be basically my footnotes for all the history I actually used.
Hmm.
But no, it's been fun. Those are the 3 major series, and St. Tommy. I'm still working on the Honor at Stake. The series that started with Honor at Stake, which is Love at First Bite, of course. I might wind up going back to the universe. Pious is thankfully done. But
It's like you
and
don't want to get too many things come true now.
we won't even get look. Stuff from Hellspawn came true 2 months later. Like, okay, reality. When you're taking tips from my horror novels, now is the
Yeah,
time to stop.
right. It's like, is this one like it's like you ever stop, you ask yourself, would I turn out to be the villain or a victim in a slasher film or horror novel or anything like that? Stop what you're doing, think about it, do something else. It's like I've been watching a lot of reviews of horror films because there's so many horror films out, you just can't get to them anymore unless you dedicate yourself to them.
This is true.
And it's like so many times it's like, oh yeah, she opens the cursed closet that has the demon possessed doll in it, even though it's locked and everyone told her don't go in the closet. Stop. Think about it. Do something else.
Yeah, yeah. As I believe, well, the last word on horror that I saw, and believe it or not, I'm not actually a fan of horror. We'll get to that in a minute. The last word I saw on horror was, I think it was Larry Correia talking about the novel Cujo, where, as he put it, if he had written it, it would have been a short story, 5 pages long, and 3 pages of that would have been discussing caliber and type of ammunition used.
Yeah,
But
that's reasonable.
yeah, and I tripped into horror. Um, one of the things I was interested in as a teenager was profiling and serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
And I read several books by John Douglas, who founded what is, well, let's call it the Profiler Unit. I don't want to get people confused with Criminal Minds, but and when I started writing Hellspawn, I merged everything I knew about demons and possession. I took everything I knew about serial killers, and the end result was me writing to my publisher going, I know you want an urban fantasy. I think I may have just written a horror novel. Sorry.
Right?
And he just wrote back, don't worry. Two of your
I'm
three
sure.
two of your three dragon nominations are in horror anyway.
Hey, if you got a niche, even if you're hitting it, you know, by accident or whatever, might as well give the people what they want.
Yeah. And surprisingly enough, they want blood. I actually even held a poll in a Facebook group that I run where it's like, okay, guys, I need your opinion on Hellspawn. It's like, did I use, how did I handle the blood and gore? Because I wanted opinions because I'm going to be at RavenCon in 2-3 weeks, and I'm going to be on a panel about horror and gore, etc. And I got 2 answers filled out. The one that barely won is, okay, they use just enough blood, don't go overboard. The runner-up, and it was like 1 or 2 votes behind, was, we need buckets, blood for the blood god. It's like, okay.
It's like, oh, all right. I think, and if you do it right, and it's like a vampire or something like that, and they heal, that just means there's going to be more blood for you to spill later in the second climactic battle. It's like,
Yeah. Well, hey, with my vampires, it's just a simple matter of, no, of course I can't have buckets of blood splashing around. Damn it, that would be wasting food.
hey, are you going to drink that? Dude, that's my own blood. Yeah, but I don't want to go to waste.
Yeah. And of course, since I have a Russian vampire, her idea of, blood is, you take the blood, you put it in the Chinese quart container, you spike it with a little vodka, and of course it's tasty.
Right. It's beautiful. Puts a new meaning to the phrase bloody Russian. But there we go.
Yeah. Lord knows. Yes, yes, bloody Russian. Insert Cossack.
Right, right. I don't know. I think the Cossack would fight on the way down. So gotta be real careful about those guys.
I'm certain when I get around to it, it'll be. Of course, the Cossacks used swords into the 20th century. What else do you kill the vampires with?
Right? I heard one saying that it's like a group of Russians is okay until a Cossack gets stuck in the mix. Uh, hmm.
Yeah.
I know. Have you read John C. Wright's Swan Knight Sun trilogy? Well, it's like 12 books eventually, but the second trilogy.
No, I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'm still trying to catch up with his Count to a Trillion series.
Oh yeah, that's good. Um, there's a Cossack in that one. He plays a violin and he has a gun that shoots dynamite. My only problem with it is that he only uses it for one scene, and it's like, no,
You must blow up more.
right? I've told him it's like I'm stealing this character. I'm changing it a little bit, maybe give him some voodoo powers or something. But it's like I'm gonna do it myself.
Well, hey, there is precedent. There is already a comic book character called Dynamite Thor.
Yes.
I can't make that up.
No. It's quite funny. Occasionally, John Delaroz posts an image of it, and I'm like, oh, eh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, yes, John. One of the other colorful characters we know.
But it makes life so interesting.
Yeah, that's true enough. Although after a while, it's like, okay, John, you're going to have to tell me, are you being serious right now? Or are you joking? I can't tell anymore.
Like the gang stuff.
Yeah, Yang Gang,
Hilarious.
yes, and we have to be very, very careful about how we pronounce that. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we become very censored very fast.
right. Now he's no, that's half a joke. It's like it's one of those things like yeah, Yang is probably the most entertaining Democrat candidate, and he's offering free money and other things like that. So it's mostly a joke. It's
Hey,
yeah, I don't know how deep you are into memes, but it's one of those things like the clown world meme is up where it's like kind of a well, it doesn't matter because everything's clown world. So those two rose about the same time, and I'm pretty sure they're connected somehow.
probably, but no. Hey, politics right now is we are in the three-ring circus, and let's face it, the latest circus started the day after midterms ended.
Yes,
Like,
it did.
so which one? So which one do we want to go with first? Do we want to go with Pocahontas? Do we want to go with the idiot from New Jersey? Because hey, I'm from New York. If Jersey's the punchline, we don't need the rest of the joke.
Or the pretend Hispanic Beto O'Rourke.
Yes, or
Yeah.
I'm expecting there's at least one Deadpool meme of his name is Francis.
Oh yes.
So
But enough about politics.
yes,
As a Hugo,
let's get to something serious.
yes, as the Hugos slide ever more inexorably into irrelevance, you're up for a Dragonicon award for Saint Tommy. Um, you were telling me about it just before we started. How's that going for you?
Well, it seems to be going well. Again, I've had public support for this book before I even thought about talking about the Dragon Awards again. Although, the Dragon Awards eligibility period starts in July of last year to the end of June this year. So it's a fine balance between, so when do I start talking about the bloody things versus, when we go all in. And I was actually kind of surprised when, St. Tommy was talked about for a Dragon Award in November of last year. Like, okay,
Right?
cool, I'll take that. And another friend of mine, Richard Paolinelli, who is also another Dragon Award nominee, sorry, finalist,
Mm-hmm.
also said, "Oh yeah, Hellspawn for horror. Like, okay, I'll take it. Uh,
Right.
now, the Dragon Awards. I don't know if anybody. For those of you who do not know about Dragon Con, it is probably one of the largest sci-fi conventions in the world because, uh, one, they get the official numbers are they get 60,000 people a year, which contradicts numbers Dragon Con itself talked about as early as 3-4 years ago, largely because um, they have to not tip off the fire marshal and get closed down. They are in 5 convention sized hotels with 2 additional buildings, one for gaming, one entirely for gaming, and one entirely for vendors. And
Hmm.
they still have problems with the fire marshal from time to time.
Yeah, that's. I remember going there last year. Like I was sort of put on edge because I really don't like hanging around huge crowds of people, but there were people everywhere all the time.
Oh
It
yeah,
was crazy.
oh yes, and it's one of the few environments where I can actually deal with large groups of people, mainly because, oh, look, you share my insanities. I like you. Um, and
Hmm.
the nice thing is with the Dragon Awards, it's hi, we get to get a we get people voting from a pool of tens of thousands of people, and this will be its 4th year. In its
Hmm.
2nd year, they had over 8,000 people voting for the Dragon Awards,
Right?
which it's like, gee, isn't that like 4 times the last number I heard on the Hugos?
Oh, absolutely. And I remember the talk about them being pretty sure a lot of them were bots or multiples or something like that nature.
Yes. Oh, I saw several of that on Twitter, and it's like, I just went up to them and retweeted them and said, ah, so Corey Doctor, is it Corey Doctorow? Whichever Doctorow was up last year. So
Yeah.
Doctorow and Jim Butcher bought a bunch of bots in order to vote. You really want to go there? They all got very quiet.
Absolutely. Oh, I don't think Jim Butcher. I don't know Cory Doctorow personally, but I don't think Jim Butcher would.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah,
Look,
I
the
don't think
first
he
year,
needs it. But
no, the first year, you had Larry Correa up against Jim Butcher. Butcher told his fans to vote for Larry. Larry told his fans to vote for Butcher. Larry wound up winning, and the most excited guy in the room wasn't Larry Correa. It was this guy in this leaf mail Captain America outfit, complete with cowl. And I didn't realize until I saw him on a panel later that was Jim Butcher.
wow.
So, no, Jim doesn't need bots. If he wanted, he could be Kingmaker every year.
Oh yeah. But hmm, I always
And
find the award stuff funny. I kicking myself because last year I released Sheik of Mars through Superversive Press, and I didn't know the cutoff date was in July, so I released it in June and didn't talk about it because I thought I had to talk about it this year. And it's like, oh no, no, you missed it. It's like, oh, well, okay then. And it's like this time for my next release, whenever it comes out, uh, Tears of Elfland, I'm gunning straight for that fantasy award nomination, or at least try for it
oh yeah,
because. Hmm?
oh yeah, I figure it's safe, especially since, well, it's safe for the moment. I hear Jim Butcher is back to writing, so quick, get it out, make sure it's this year, and perhaps you can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it under the wire before he decides to start publishing again.
Hey, all I need to do is say, yeah, I lost to Jim Butcher, and it's like, okay, that's fair. There's no shame in that.
This is true. This is true.
Yep, yep. Mm.
No, it's been quite entertaining, especially since I feel like the default guy every time the Dragon Awards comes up, because it's my first year. I wound up going on stage to collect 2 out of 3 awards, and I wound up picking up a third one afterwards because even though I didn't win anything, it's like, okay, I'm supposed to pick up an award for John C. Wright if he wins. John C. Wright wins, goes up,
Mhm.
reads, goes up, reads the speech, come down. And another one I won, I was nominated for horror in the first year, and I was up against Brian Niemeyer, who
Mhm.
also wanted me to pick up his award for him. So of course he won, and I came up again. It's like, no, I am not stealing this. He wanted me to pick it up. Honest.
That's right.
And afterwards, I got a message on my phone from Nick Cole saying, "Hi, could you pick up mine while you're there?" I think he was apocalyptic or something. Like,
Hmm.
okay, sure, I can do that.
Yeah, they know me by my first name.
So it's been very entertaining, and the thing I love about the dragons, mainly the thing I love about the dragons is, unlike other award shows, they're not pretentious.
Hmm.
It's like every Dragon Award panel is scheduled for about an hour. The Dragon Awards are the same, and I don't think one awards presentation went over 30 minutes long.
Good. I it's an award show. I don't know. Like, are they doing a best of, and like reading it out? Uh,
Actually, they are. They're reading out all the nominees. Um, I mean, they've had. Let me see. Let me see. They've had Eric Flint do a presentation. They had Jerry Pornell do a presentation about 3 days, 4 days before he died.
mhm.
He presented on the Sunday. He was dead by Thursday. Um,
Yeah.
and, may he rest in peace.
Hmm.
And good Lord, they've had Kevin J. Anderson do present. They've had a lot of people do presentations. That's the short version. Um,
Yes.
although I must admit, 2 years ago, I met Jerry Pornell at his last panel at DragonCon, and he was dead like 2, 3 days later. And last year, I was on a panel with Larry Niven, and all I could think is, please God, don't let him die 48 hours later. I can't have two of them.
Right. I love The Moat in God's Eye. That's probably one of my favorite science fiction books of all time. And it's like, ooh, such a pity. That's why I make sure to visit John C. Wright regularly.
Yeah, thankfully, Mr. Wright does not seem to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Hmm. You better not. I mean, Star Quest. Ooh, everyone's waiting for that.
Oh yes, the not Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I'm writing my own sort of like Star Wars esque one, and somebody said that it was too much like Star Wars, and I'm like, well, I hit it.
It's like, no, 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 no. Your proper response is no. It's like what Star Wars used to be.
Right. Yes. But it was for me explicitly to write something like Star Wars, so it's like, yeah, okay, I dig it. I really hope sci-fi takes off in that direction again. I do love a good urban fantasy, but ooh, good sci-fi, meaty, plenty of like thought put into it. Ooh.
Well, it will be interesting to see how things develop.
Mm,
Um, on the one hand, you've got the Pulp Revolution people, who are a nice group of folks. Although every time they decide to talk about any books, it's don't read anything before 1940. Don't read anything after 1940. My apologies, I got that backwards. And all I could think
mhm.
is, wait, you want to encourage people to both write more like the pulps, On the other hand, you don't want anyone to read anything new. So how is that going to work?
Oh yes. Uh, I ignored that part though. Though that's because I do like some of the new stuff coming out. To me, there's like I think you're 10 years older than me or something. But like there's a gap from like 19, like whenever they did the last good Star Wars book, which was of course a Timothy Zahn novel. I've got to like when like 2000 something to now ish, like 2016, like 15 years where I basically read nothing new published until I discovered John C. Wright, Larry Correa, and all that jazz. Like it's just nothing, and they're already talking about Disney because nobody's buying whatever vomit, whatever his name is, typed out. They brought back Timothy Zahn to write another Thrawn novel. They're going to reset the rumor is they're going to reset the universe again, or at least try to revive the old one that everyone loved and nobody asked for it to be removed. So it's one of those things that's like, you shot yourselves in the foot.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, let's face it. The best move Disney could make is go, okay, we screwed it up. There is no episodes 7, 8, and 9. We're going to recast everybody. And Timothy, and the first book, the first, episode 7 is called Heir to the Empire. You know,
Please.
Probably starting Benedict Cumberbatch's Thrawn.
I don't even care. Go for it. I love it. They could do whatever as long as it's not the as long as Admiral Dalla doesn't show up. I don't care. But they'll probably try to shoehorn her in, turn Pelion into a Tilda Swinton or something. It's like no,
Well,
don't.
sorry, the moment I said, okay, Benedict Cumberbatch as Thrawn, that means Pelion has to be Martin Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, Thrawn and Pelion were Holmes and Watson with tactical manuals.
Yep.
So, and frankly, I'm good with almost anything Martin Freeman is in. Even if the movie sucks, he's usually good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's even I watched the Sherlock series, and it's like those two worked together very well. It was that like even though the show isn't really worth watching, um, for guys anyway, that part certainly was great dynamics.
Oh yeah.
Hmm. So let's see here. So far it seems that you've written a lot of urban fantasy. Um, do you have any plans for so you've got plans for more St. Tommy books? Do you have anything else you're working on?
Well, St. Tommy's going to go up to book 6, and after that, I'm going to take a break because I can't really throw anything else larger at him without probably, just blowing up the planet. And I want to hold off on blowing up the planet just yet.
Of course.
I'm not John Ringo. Blowing up the entire population is not quite my jam. But no, the next thing after St. Tommy is going to be a space opera. It was originally one of the first things I had ever written, and it's been rewritten so many times. There is, almost no similarity between draft 1 and draft whatever, whichever one I'm on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the first 5 books. I've got bits and pieces of the next 13 books. So we'll see how well and how fast that goes. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and assuming I haven't worked myself to death by then, I'm going to be circling around back to urban fantasy.
Out of curiosity, I saw that you really burned through whichever St. Tommy's book is. You posted about it on Facebook, like 50,000 words. How long do you think? How long do you usually write your novels?
Well, The first St. Tommy book took about 6 weeks. The last St. Tommy novel took about 3 weeks. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping to. I'm hoping to get to the point where I can do 10,000 words a day, which I have done. Do 10,000 words a day, 5 days a week, and just pop out, 4 books in a month. I Yeah, that would be very nice. I'm not. Let's just say that my wife has already said, "Please don't kill yourself." End quote. So I'm going to take it a little bit easy. Step one: write a book in 2 weeks and see how I feel after that.
Right. Here's a question from Bar One Studios. What are the keys to paranormal romance and urban fantasy?
Um, First of all, treat paranormal romance like an actual romance, and I don't mean Harley Quinn novels. I haven't read too many of them. I've read similar.
Hmm.
Um, for those of you wondering what my supernatural romance reading list looks like, it's largely Carolyn Sparks and Lindsay Sands, who both have a lot of character. Uh, in the case of Carolyn Sparks, she has a lot more plot. But step one, don't have your characters meet and fall into bed within 48 hours. Uh, Romance is romance. You're still dealing with people. Now, I'm bizarre in that I usually just create a character, I do their entire biography, and then I kind of wind up the toys, put them together, and I follow them and take notes. Um, that's why with my Love at First Bite series, my characters meet in book one, and they don't get together until well, it's a little bit of a question about how you define get together, but they do not get together by the end of book one because I'm developing a relationship between two people who are really screwed up people.
Yes, with histories and personal problems.
Oh, yeah. And so many problems. As the tagline goes for the book, or at least one of them, one is a merciless, bloodthirsty killer, the other is a vampire. So,
I've read that one. That one's pretty good. Uh,
so no, the key to doing paranormal romance is you take all the elements of a romance and then you pile on the other problems. Because let's face it, uh, romance is problematic enough. Then you're going to be adding a 300-year-old vampire, or hi, I tend to get a little. Are you into furries? Because I am one 3 nights of the month. Things like that.
right. It's like, oh no, I knew, whatever degenerate, Marquise de Sade or Elizabeth Bathory. It's like, a little bit of disemboweling doesn't bother me sometimes. Uh, here's a statement for another one from Bar One Studios. Nothing bigger than a troll. Otherwise, it technically becomes a kaiju story. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm usually not the person to ask about kaiju. That's actually more my friend Jason's area of expertise. Although, how do I put this? You remember the joke in Young Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks movie, where they were discussing building the monster and everything would have to be proportionately larger, and you know the blonde used a made up German word for dick, and it's like, so how tall are trolls? If you want to talk proportion, I think that goes into the emergency room. If it's troll on human romance, if you're talking about troll on other supernatural entity, that's where I exit stage left.
Yeah. Hey, that's other people. As the joke goes, hey, I'd marry her first. But
Amen.
who cares if she's got 4 legs? It's all right. Put a ring on it. Um, so, you have any other suggestions for those, especially those who would like to write bloody urban romance with no urban fantasy, urban romance, no, with a hint of the supernatural in the Christian sort of sense?
Well, if you okay, it will of course largely depend on what supernatural beastie you're talking about. But when in doubt, if you're doing something like demons and your church, like mine, uh, believes in demons, that's something you can actually research. I
Mm-hmm.
have actually read two books by the Vatican's chief exorcist. He
Wow.
was the guy everyone made fun of for not liking Harry Potter about 5, 10 years ago. And now we have J.K. Rowling doing all sorts of things for her own canon. Maybe he was right. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I've read books about exorcists or by exorcists. Uh, and frankly, if you're going with an established monster like vampires, mummies, etc., try to follow the canon. Ring changes on the canon. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know about anyone else. My biggest problem is when they decide to, oh, we'll keep vampires, we'll keep that they're allergic to silver or sunlight, but we'll take out that they're allergic to anything holy. Like, is there a good reason for this?
You realize that silver's a holy metal. It's purity,
you know,
not ring bell.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they have these little issues here and there, but again, if you're doing anything with any kind of supernatural monster, set the ground rules. If there's established canon, bring changes to it if you like, but try to stick with it at
Mm-hmm.
least a little. I've managed to both balance the lore of vampires as set down by Dracula, and then I came at it with my secondary degree in Catholic philosophy and
Mm-hmm.
added not too much more on top of what's already there, and I was off to the races. I mean, hell, if you want to do golems, I have to be very, very picky about the pronunciation there. I don't want people to get mistaken for Lord of the Rings. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to do golems, look them up. They're a mythological creature. You might get some interesting ideas. But throwing out the baby with the bathwater, bad idea. As
Mm-hmm.
for urban in the urban fantasy, that's the point where you probably should write what you know, or at least use as much as what you know as possible. You know, as I said at the start of the show, one of my early reviews about Hellspawn said, "I know he's a New Yorker. He didn't go near Times Square. He didn't go near Manhattan. He did. There was not one scene on the Empire State Building." Um, but
Mm-hmm.
and heck, if you live in, I don't know, St. Louis, Chicago, South Bend, Indiana, I'd like to see monster novel set at because Notre Dame University. Uh, you know, there are options, and just because you're in quote flyover country, a term I hate, or if you yourself think you're in the back end of nowhere, guess what? There are going to be peculiarities to the back end of nowhere that are interesting to people who do not live where you do.
Oh yeah. Like if your area has any kind of age or civilizations to it, like in St. Louis, we have places, from the Native Americans and whatnot, lasting back, thousands of years. Not quite Aztec temples, but pretty crazy, lengths of time spent inhabiting the land. Like you can pull anything from Indian inspired ones to like, German vampires or werewolves brought over by the Budweisers to, farm their rice and barley for bush beer. Like there's a thousand different things you can do just from like the Mississippi Valley region, Mississippi River, haunted paddle boats, steamboats, Civil War soldiers. One time during the Civil War, the governor tried to run away with the seal for the state because he believed that without the seal they couldn't pass any laws. Like you could find anything in your local town and turn it to, shall we say, good use.
Pretty much. So, anyway, did I completely answer that question, or did I miss something?
Oh, I think you've answered it completely. We'll see what Bar One Studios says. What do you think is a good ratio of? I think was it Larry Correa? It was probably Larry Correa. I think I can say anything that's like sounds like it and attribute it to Larry Correa and be kind of right. But it's like don't go like 5,000 words without a gunfight or something like that, or without an explosion. Somebody said that somewhere.
No, that is a Larry quote, or it was an assessment of Larry's work, possibly by Daddy Warpig. But either way, it's close enough. No, I think 5,000 words is way too generous. Keep in mind, every 1,000 words is 4 pages. So, if things are going on for 20 pages and what are you doing for 20 pages? Or is everyone sitting around just talking at each other? But no, I tend to do it every oh yeah, every 2 to 3,000 words is what I usually tend to wind up doing. Because after a while, it's like, you know what? I'm bored. Let's throw in a gunfight.
Right?
Yeah, believe it or not, there was a in Hellspawn. I had a random encounter that I had not planned on, even in the outline. And, it's like, turns out to be MS-13. Okay, fine. And I used that for several random encounters over the course of the novel. And I actually got somebody who gave me a 1-star review because they thought that I used MS-13 for random encounters, that I was some kind of white nationalist. Like, you do know what MS-13 is, right?
Right.
They're not good people, don't you? But, some people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's if people don't know their history, don't know what's going on. It's like it's like NPC. Don't do that. That's the dangerous part of town at night. While you're flashing around your $100 bills. It's not smart. It's like, what do we say in St. Louis? Don't go to East St. Louis. It's a nice family saying we got here. Um, and it's you just don't go to East St. Louis. I'm sure you got places in New York. You just it's like, so what's over there? Don't go there. That's Jersey.
Jersey, parts of the Bronx, parts of Brooklyn. No, parts of Queens offhand, but close enough.
But for different reasons. There's other gangs there.
Pretty much. And it's like, hey, one of the parts that MS-13 has been moving into is 5 miles away from my house.
Oh, that's a good time. Uh, Actually, I'm feeling pretty lucky. The crime in the area has gone down because one of the areas near my house, like not walking distance, but pretty darn close, has been starting to gentrify and it's spreading south from the city. And it's like, oh, I hope just pushes out the people who fire their guns at night or whatever.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, here's something. Um, oh, it's like that old joke, some guy or story. It's like some guy fires into the air every couple days, and it's like, why are you doing that? Oh, just to keep the property taxes down. Oh. Hmm. I've had people freak out like during New Year's and Fourth of July and stuff like that. Like when they hear the gunfire, that people do. It's like I threw my family down and I jumped over him just in case a bullet hit me from my neighbor firing his gun into the air. And it's like that's not how any of this works. If you fire a gun, the danger isn't that it's going to hit the guy next to you. It's going to be that it'll hit some grandma a county over as she's opened the window and walked outside with a target on her head or whatever. Like the momentum won't even like pierce your roof. Um, if it's a decently made roof, of course. I don't know how well you know your roofer. Uh, and stuff like that. So I've seen St. Tommy with a Tommy gun, but do you have a favorite set of weapons to arm your urban fantasy protagonists with?
Um, chemistry.
Ooh.
I've used thermite. I've what was that one? It'll come to me. But no, it was one of these chlorine trifluoride, and it's basically it'll set sand on fire. It'll set concrete on fire. Oh, by the way, you can't put it out with water. If it's in metal, that'll be fine as long as it's perfectly sealed. Because if it opens up in an atmosphere above 40 degrees, it'll ignite.
Oh dear.
And oh, by the way, when it splashes on somebody, it sets off clouds of hydrofluoric acid. Like, okay, I got to use this somewhere.
Yeah, it's like when you hear that like jet fuel is actually like pretty stable until it starts gassing up. It's like, oh, I can use that for something. I don't know what, but I'll use it. I
Hell
think,
yeah.
oh yeah, like like what I'm planning on doing is following the footsteps of people who have been wildly successful eventually, and have this urban fantasy series. And like I need to set a fight in Lambert Airport, which is the big airport in St. Louis, world famous, all that jazz, and like just use that fact about jet fuel to my advantage. How? Again, I don't know, but I'll blow something up. It's going to be pretty cool. I've got how like a lot of characters have like some healing factor, or they get away with things they probably shouldn't get away with. I plan on having my character acquire a Shuggoth sometime, the servant races of the great old ones and all that jazz, and it's bound to him. And the gag is going to be, it's like, Master, if you gave me like two more orphans, I could like take care of those guys for you. And it's like, no, we're not feeding you any orphans. And he'll be the reason why he can, withstand small arms. A 50 cal will probably punch right through, but
Works for me.
let me ramp it up a little bit, compared to give me a little bit of an edge, because this is what it's about. It's a literary arms race. I shouldn't even be sharing my secrets with you, but but what's a little plagiarism between friends?
Pretty much.
Yep. So what's your next book coming out, Declan?
Next book is going to be City of Shadows. That will be St. Tommy, book 4. And it will be coming out April 9th, I think, if I recall correctly. Hold on. Yeah, April 9th sounds about right. And it will be coming out from Silver Empire Press. And it's going to be the usual amount of things blow up, followed by, well, don't blink or the shadows will eat you.
Ooh, fantastic. I suppose he's found some secret underground nega New York City and has to fight his way through. I hope. Is it something cool?
No. Oh, it's something cool, but it also involves spoilers for book 3. So,
Never mind then. I'm sure whoever gets the wrong end of his Tommy gun will certainly deserve it. Is Saint Tommy a closed series, or is it just kind of like, I'm a little bit tired, I'm gonna do something else for a while?
it's probably going to be, I'm tired of going to do something else for a while. Mainly because, again, there's only so many things I could throw at him before. Okay, we are now going to destroy the eastern seaboard.
Unless, and then it's like he, does, well, whatever, and stops the demon or reverses time or anything like that. And then it's the question of time travel, and if you mess that up, you just ruin it. Actually, I have this whole rant thing I keep writing, but I never publish it because it's just insane about me complaining about time travel. I think I put like one article of it up on Superversive Press, and it's reading it. It's like, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, Ben. It's like, okay, all right. But gist of it is, don't do time travel unless you plot it out so carefully.
Yes.
Otherwise, it just makes me angry.
Yeah, and then you get, I don't know, bad episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's just about right. All right, we've been at this for about an hour. Do you have anything else you'd like to mention today?
uh, nope, that Hellspawn is up, as are the next 2 books, and so the Dragon Awards are open to be voted on. And
Oh
I
yeah.
recommend you at least consider go over there, awards.dragoncon.org, and take a look at what's there, and at least contemplate voting.
Oh, certainly. One should always operate one's choice at the ballot. I had to vote recently for like 2 incredibly unimportant office positions for the city government, and it's like, I don't like doing this, but I'm doing it just in case it matters. And of course, we actually have ideological enemies, so it's like, ooh. Every vote makes John Scalzi's spine twinge. How about that? Or who's the current head of Swiftwa?
Well, Cat Rambo is leaving, and I think Mary Robinette Knowles is going in.
Yeah, I've never even heard of her before. Um, yeah, it'll send a tingle up their spine like somebody walked over their grave or something. I don't know. Use your imagination, guys. Anything's funny. Um, I think I'll end this with a story. I was on a panel. Not on a panel, excuse me. I attended a panel. I've yet to be on a panel. I keep trying to get in, but they won't let me. Um, I'll sneak in. But it was Jaji, Lamplighter Wright, two guys I don't really remember the name of. I see the books, Butler something, and I can't read the other one because it's a little bit too small text. I'm in my room with my library around me, of course. And Cat Rambo was on the panel. And I said, do you guys force your diversity, or do you make it natural to the story plot, since it's so important? One of those innocent questions. And of course, I was looking at Cat Rambo, so she spoke first, and she tripped over it. It's like, is he catching me out? Like, what is this? And then Jaji Lamplighter was the next one in line, and she goes, "Oh, of course, I do whatever's natural. I've got this Korean girl in this wonderful story." And the next person's like, "Yeah, I've got a Scottish thing," and they pick up this guy from Africa and this guy from China, and so on and so forth. And like, like, you can catch him out so easily with just the simplest questions. It's so delightful. But that's me being a sadistic jerk at the expense of somebody who's probably very professional. uh, I hope you guys enjoyed my live stream with Declan Finn. Do check out his Hellspawn, which I put down in the doobly-doo, and you'll easily find the rest of his stories through there. Also check out my Fiverr, where I will help you write your book for various amounts of money, up to and including editing, as well as Superversive Press and other things. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Have a great evening.